Hey friends, welcome to Good Warfare, Biblical Motherhood for the Modern World. My name is Lily, and in this episode, we're diving into time management tips for first-time moms balancing work, family, and faith. Now, let me be the first to say, I don't have it all figured out. I'm right here in the trenches with you, learning as I go, but I want to share what's been working for us in this season. Stick around. By day, I work as a remote project manager, so planning, organizing, and managing big technical projects is part of my job. And while those skills come naturally to me at work, I found them to be such a blessing at home, especially as a first-time mom, because they've helped me stay organized and avoid feeling completely overwhelmed. So I want to share a few things, 8 to be exact, that have helped me manage my time as a new mom. These are a mix of spiritual principles and practical strategies that you can prayerfully consider and adapt to your own season. My hope is that at least one or two of them blesses you and encourages you. So I'll list out the tips that I'll be discussing. So tip 1 is you cannot be idle anymore. Use every minute wisely. Tip 2, know God's will to make the best use of your time. Tip 3, rely on God's perfect timing to see and step into the opportunities He sends your way. Tip 4, create boundaries. Tip 5, create routines or systems. Tip 6, delegate and seek help if you can. Tip 7, start slowly if you don't already have routines in place. Tip 8, commit to daily family worship. All right, let's get into each tip. Tip number 1, you cannot be idle anymore. Use every minute wisely. So the truth is that I don't have time to waste anymore, whether that's scrolling on social media or binge watching Netflix. Every minute has to be used wisely because time really is the most valuable asset we have right now. And if we waste it, we lose out on quality moments with our little ones and with our husband. But when we use it wisely, we can actually enjoy those experiences with our family without feeling rushed or pressured to hurry on to the next thing on the to-do list. I've definitely had days where I've wasted time and it throws everything off. Suddenly, meal times get delayed, baby's bedtimes sneak up on us before we are even showered. I fall behind on my pumping schedule, and oh, the pain that brings. And the bottles aren't even washed or ready for the next day. When I think about wasted time, the Bible makes it so clear what the results are. Idleness always leads to suffering. Proverbs says laziness brings hunger in Proverbs 19:15 and poverty in chapter 10 verse 4, chapter 6 through 11. Paul even reminds us in Ephesians to redeem the time because the days are evil. If I'm not careful, a little wasted time here and there can creep in and suddenly leave me feeling behind, stressed, and honestly, not the wife or mom I want to be. Can anyone relate to that? But when we use our time wisely, we're not just checking off tasks, we're actually honoring God. We're caring for our families the way Proverbs 31 describes watching over our households and refusing the bread of idleness. Proverbs 31:27. And if you look at Psalm 90, it says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. So using our time well is really about walking in God's wisdom. And as a result, our household become places of blessings instead of stress. I love what author E.G.W. says. God grants men the gift of time for the purpose of promoting His glory. When this time is used in selfish pleasure, the hours thus spent are lost for all eternity. Okay, now let's move on to tip number 2. Know God's will to make the best use of your time. Many times we're unsure of God's will, both for us as individuals and for our family. And when we don't have clarity, we end up wavering between options, overthinking, and sometimes never deciding. That lack of clarity can actually waste a lot of time because we're busy circling possibilities instead of walking in confidence. Let me share a personal example. So during my pregnancy, we made the decision to temporarily move back home to Florida so we could have help from my parents during the last trimester and after the baby was born. Now, this wasn't a decision we made lightly. We loved everything about where we were in North Carolina, and honestly, we always pictured ourselves having the baby there. But I kept having this tug in my heart, thoughts that maybe just for this season we needed to be back home. I was hesitant, though. Going back meant losing a lot of the routines and peace we had built in North Carolina. And I didn't want to make a decision out of fear or convenience. I wanted to be sure it was God leading us. What confirmed it for me was actually a dream. I had 2 dreams, but in one of them, I saw myself with our baby. He was a few months old because he said Dada in the dream, and we were at my parents' house. So God used that to give me peace that this was His will for our family in this season. And if you want to hear more details about that story, you can go back to episode 11, where I share how God answered my prayers through dreams. So looking back now, I can't imagine how much harder those first few months of motherhood would have been without the support we've had here. Knowing God's will allowed us to make the best use of this time, not just practically, but spiritually too, because it kept us aligned with His plan rather than our own. And in this instance, these verses come to mind. Ephesians 5:17. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And Psalm 32:8. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. Okay, let's move on to the next tip. Tip number 3. Rely on God's perfect timing to see and step into the opportunities He sends your way. The Bible is filled with God giving His people opportunities at the right time in their lives. So let me remind you of some. We have Noah. God gave Noah a specific time to build the ark, and this opportunity helped preserve the animals and his family and humanity. We also have Abraham. God called Abraham to leave his homeland to go to a new land. This was an opportunity to trust God's promise of becoming a great nation. Then Joseph. God gave Joseph the opportunity to become second in command in Egypt after he was falsely imprisoned, which eventually helped save the people, including his family. Next is Moses. God gave Moses the opportunity to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and delivered them from slavery. And then we have the Israelites, who are an example of God giving them the opportunity to enter the promised land, but unfortunately they missed their opportunity. It took them 40 years of wandering in the desert due to their disbelief and disobedience. And another missed opportunity occurred with the rich young ruler, who, when given the opportunity to follow Jesus, he chose possessions over eternal life. Well, we have Rahab as an example of someone who took the opportunity to hide the spies and side with God's people, and her decision saved her family, and she became part of the lineage of Jesus. Then Ruth, who took the opportunity to follow Naomi and God, which led her to become the great-grandmother of David. Then Esther, who had the opportunity to save her people. It risked her life, but saved them. Nehemiah had the opportunity to rebuild the walls, and the disciples had the opportunity to follow the Messiah and spread the gospel. And Peter was given the opportunity for restoration, and Jesus also called him after denying Jesus 3 times and then being commissioned to feed my lambs, tend my sheep, and feed my sheep. And finally, the last example I'll use is Paul, and God turned Paul's persecution into preaching. He was then given many opportunities to preach the gospel. I may not know exactly what you're walking through right now, but let the lives of the people I just mentioned be a reminder. Even when it feels like we're losing out or stuck in the ordinary, everyday parts of motherhood, God's timing is always perfect. He knows when to bring the right opportunities, ones that not only bless us as moms, but also ripple out to bless our families. Keep seeking Him daily so you don't miss those opportunities like the Israelites or the rich young ruler once did. And don't overlook the simple, everyday chances He gives you. The opportunity to show your child love and patience, to read a Bible story together, or to bring them peace and comfort as they rest. Sometimes the greatest opportunities God places in our path are tucked right into the daily rhythms of motherhood. And I love this quote from Matthew Henry. It says, "Our opportunities are in God's hand, and therefore He knows how to choose the best and fittest time for our deliverance, and we must be willing to wait that time." All right, tip number 4, create boundaries. And while I was reading Exodus 19, 2 verses really stood out to me. Verse 12 says, "You shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, take heed to yourselves that you do not go up the mountain or touch its base. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. And later in verse 24 of chapter 19, then the Lord said to him, away, get down, and then come up, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break out against them. To summarize what we just read, God asked Moses to set boundaries for the people so they wouldn't go up Mount Sinai or even touch its base because he was about to descend in all his glory. So Moses gave the instructions, but God, knowing their hearts and their curiosity, told him to go back down and remind them again. Why? Because if they ignored the boundaries and tried to see God's face, they would die. So out of his holiness and his protection, God made it clear. This was a sacred moment and boundaries were necessary. Matthew Henry's commentary puts it this way: the solemnity of the giving of the law upon Mount Sinai was one of the most striking appearances of the divine glory that ever was in this lower world. And this reminded me of the importance of setting boundaries with our time. For us, that looks like having specific days when family or friends can visit. It's usually Sundays, but not every Sunday. And protecting our baby's naps and bedtime no matter what, and also making sure that his routine isn't disrupted. Those boundaries help us guard what matters most because just like God set boundaries on Mount Sinai to protect his people, we set boundaries in our homes to protect what is sacred, our children, our family rhythms, and our walk with God. So what about you? What boundaries do you need to set in your family's life to protect your time, priorities, and your walk with God? Now on to the next tip. Tip number 5, create routines or systems. This one is so critical for children. In fact, the Journal of Family Theory and Review published a systematic review of studies from 1950 to 2020 showing the association between daily routines and child development. It showed what we have been told all along. I quote directly from the study. Daily routines have been demonstrated to augment executive functions in children and adolescents, encompassing capabilities such as inhibition, working memory, and self-control. Knowing that, we need to be mindful of our child's day-to-day schedule. Our little one is 4 months old, but already has somewhat of a routine. He wakes up at around 7, 8 a.m. right after I head into my little office area at home to start work. My husband wakes up with him, gives him a bottle, and sometimes they go outside for a little sun. Then it's playtime, tummy time, singing, and interacting. Then grandma wakes up shortly after and spends time with playing with him or reading to him while my husband makes breakfast for everyone. Next, it's time for his nap, and when he wakes up, we repeat the process all over again. At bedtime, it's grandma's turn to put him to sleep while we get ready for bed. My husband takes him to bed while I do my last pump of the day. So his routine is constant and predictable, exactly what he needs at this stage. And some systems we've created to make life run more smoothly include setting days and times for errands so we don't have the bandwidth to run errands every day. And if we don't finish everything during that designated slot, we wait until the next one. I know it sounds strict, but we've tried a looser approach before and it threw everything off. So this works best for us. And then the other system we've created is specific laundry days. I'm not a fan of weekend laundry, so we try to get it done between Wednesday and Thursday. The key is starting early in the day and setting timers so we can switch loads promptly when the machines stop. So routines and systems aren't just about getting things done. They give your family consistency and peace. Nap and bedtime routines, scheduled errands, and laundry days, these things might feel small, but they create a rhythm that makes life smoother and helps you actually enjoy the moments that matter most. Okay, and with that, we'll move on to tip number 6. Delegate and seek help if you can. I know this one feels like a luxury or is a luxury because not everyone has help, and I'm so thankful for my parents being available to support us. Even though they work full-time, we make it work together. What really helps is that we're organized and share a common goal, which is the well-being of our baby. My parents help in specific ways. So my mom usually handles washing the bottles in the mornings or evenings. We have a sterilizer and a dryer, not a washer, but honestly, she's so fast and good at it, it works perfectly. She also helps throughout the day with feedings, naps, and playtime. And my dad usually helps with nap times and keeping our little one entertained during wake windows. And if we have an urgent errand, we can rely on my dad to step in whenever possible. And what I've noticed is that they actually love helping. They would hate it if we didn't ask because it gives them joy and purpose in spending time with their grandchild. My husband and I also have specific tasks. For example, he sorts colors and handles laundry transfers while I fold and put clothes away. We work as a team, and that helps strengthen our relationship too. So, can you think about ways to get help, whether from family, friends, paid support, or even delegating tasks to your husband or kids so your day feels a little lighter? Think about that and have a chat with your family members to see how they can all chip in. Anyway, we'll move on to tip number 7. Start slowly if you don't already have routines in place. So don't eat more than you can chew on this one or on all these tips. Take it one bite at a time. What is one thing you could do today from all the tips I've shared? That is, where can you start? And then slowly start incorporating more of these tips. And the last tip, but the most important one, is tip number 8. Commit to daily family worship. So if all else fails, this cannot. And I'll start this tip with a personal story. The newborn stage was so hard for me. I was exhausted from lack of sleep, uncomfortable from the C-section, and dealing with breastfeeding challenges. There was absolutely no time to read God's word, and family worship with my husband felt impossible. It was literally survival mode. So all I could do was pray, and pray I did for every single aspect of my baby's life. Now that we're past that stage, so we're currently 4 months in, we have more space to read God's word. Since I don't know your situation, I want to encourage you to start prioritizing family worship. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like I shared with a friend earlier this month or last month, it can be as simple as reading a Bible story together with your kids, discussing it briefly, or repeating a common theme from it. In this season, we may not have time for a full personal Bible study, and that's okay. We can use the opportunities we have. Remember tip number 3? To read a children's Bible together, have our kids color something related to the story, sing a song about it, or even enjoy a snack connected to the story. We may not always see the immediate impact, but it is shaping our walk with Christ and teaching His word to impressionable minds. I see it firsthand because just reading the story of Joseph in our Rhyme Bible to my 4-month-old got me reflecting on how I need to remain faithful in everything I do for the Lord. So God was speaking to me while I read to my baby. If you take any of these tips, let this one be your starting point. Prioritize family worship. It doesn't have to be long or complex. Even 2 minutes is a perfect start. Small and steady wins the race. As Paul said in Hebrews 12:1, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Friends, I hope this episode has helped you think of ways to better manage your time in your season of motherhood. I'd love to hear what you're doing now and how it's helping you. Maybe I can even incorporate some of your tips into my own life. And if this episode encouraged you, please share it with a friend and leave a positive review. It really helps others find the encouragement they need too.